Welcome to the Onion Buns. So today we're going to take a little bit of a break from the endless barrage of Mark Carney lying to everybody. I had two videos to choose from. One is Danielle Smith, Premier Danielle Smith, having a conversation with Mark Carney, but again, that's about Mark Carney, so I'm going to leave that for later. What I'm going to go with is the press conference that Jagmeet Singh did. Now, full disclosure, I just watched it. I was recording my video and I was, for the first time, I hadn't watched it and I was doing my react to it and my stupid program hit an error and stopped recording. So I have to re-record this. So I've seen this, so I know what's coming. So anyway, before we get there, if you like the content I make, please like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to grow the channel, and liking, subscribing, and sharing is a huge help to me. Like, subscribe, and share. I got to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I'm putting out the plea to you. And enough of the begging. All right, so we got Jagmeet Singh doing a press conference in Hamilton Steel Factory. Now, Jagmeet likes to think himself a man of the people. I don't know many people that drive Mercedes, have $10,000 Rolex watches and all the other hoopla. But yeah, the common thread you're going to hear in this is him try to talk about the workers and how he cares about the workers. Well, if he cared about the workers, he wouldn't have been propping up the Trudeau-Carney government for the last 4 years. Everything Trudeau and Carney did to Canada, destroying our environment, destroying our industries, our manufacturing, raising inflation to almost record heights, lowering our dollar value to almost record lows. All of this was done and propped up by Jagmeet Singh. So I want people to keep in mind that when Jagmeet's talking about the workers, he's actually done nothing in the past 4 years to help the workers. He's helped himself greatly. Like he held Canada hostage by refusing to call a election when we wanted it so that he could get his pension, his gold-plated pension. You know, this is what Jagmeet was worried about. This is what Jagmeet wanted. So keep that in mind while you're watching them, because the hypocrisy runs deep in this video. Also, one thing I want you to watch, I just noticed it in the last row. The guy on the far right corner, he wants out of there. He does not want to be there. It's clearly he was ordered to be there. There's a couple other guys in the back doing the same thing, but he's the funniest of them all. He wants out of there. He's twitching. He's looking at the sky. He's looking at his watch. He's fidgeting back and forth. Like, it couldn't be more obvious that he wants to be anywhere but in this press conference. So anyway, let's take a look. This is the guy I'm talking about. Keep an eye on him. He is hilarious at how badly he wants to get out of this press conference.
Steel workers will tell you, whether you're a steel worker, you're working in an aluminum producing factory, you're working in a factory that manufactures anything. Those workers are worried that they might be the next to lose their jobs. Marty already pointed out, workers are already losing their jobs right now.
Workers are losing their jobs because you propped up the liberal Trudeau-Carney government. It's their policies that have caused these workers to lose their jobs, and it was your vote, and you're corralling the NDP vote to prop up those policies. So it's really rich that you're suddenly caring about these workers when for the last 4 years you've done everything to make sure these workers are unemployed.
In this time, when workers are losing their job, they need to know that employment insurance is going to be there for them. There's going to be some programs in place for them.
This is another ongoing theme with him. He's not really worried about the jobs. He's worried about employment insurance. Well, shouldn't you be focused on making sure they have jobs rather than having unemployment insurance? Like, wouldn't a job be better? Maybe I'm being foolish here, but I think making sure these guys keep their jobs and their livelihoods should be a government, any government, be it Liberal, Conservative, NDP, that should be the first priority. Now, he's going to mention Poilievre a number of times about giving a tax cut, or promising, because Poilievre has no power right now. He's just the opposition, something Jagmeet leaves out of the equation. Only Jagmeet and the Liberals have had power over the last 4 years. Everything that's happened in the last 4 years is on Jagmeet, Trudeau, and Carney. Poilievre didn't have any power. He played the opposition role, and he played it well, but he didn't have a say in any of this. So he couldn't put in his policies. But Polyev has said he's going to give them a 30% tax break. That 30% is going to ensure all these workers continue to be employed. Jugmeet, he just wants them fired so he can put them on unemployment, live off the government tit. Well, how does that help them? Once the unemployment runs out, they're shit out of luck. You know, it honestly makes no sense to me. Every government figure should be focused on keeping these men and women employed. That should be the first priority.
They can keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, and keep paying their bills. But right now, that is not the case. And I want to point out that Mark Carney has been prime minister for a week now. He's found the time to go to Europe. He's found the time to bring in a tax cut for millionaires, but he has done nothing for workers who are losing their jobs in this country. Shame. Nothing. He's done nothing to help out people and say, you know what, if you are going to lose your job, we're going to have your back. He's done nothing. In a week, facing the most serious economic crisis we've been up against in a generation. And Pierre Poilievre, I want to point out Pierre Poilievre as well. He showed up to a factory where 30 workers lost their jobs and proposed
30 workers lost their jobs because you propped up the Liberal government. That wasn't Poilievre's fault. That was your fault.
a tax cut for the business. He said nothing to the workers who actually lost their job.
He did. He said, we're going to give a tax cut so that you can get your jobs back. You keep leaving this part out of the equation. It's dishonest.
He said nothing to the people who are now wondering, how am I going to keep a roof over my head? Nothing for them. But it shows you who Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are in it for. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. They're not in it for the worker. That's the difference between them and us. New Democrats are proud to say we were founded by working people.
Yes, the NDP were founded by working people. The modern day NDP have nothing in common with the founding NDP. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just like the modern day Liberals absolutely reject traditional center-left liberal values. Just because you have the name of the party does not mean you are the same party.
Their party founded by unions. And should come as no surprise that we want to see a worker-led economy where workers are first. So the first step of a new Democrat government would be to immediately make sure EI can help workers keep a roof over their head.
Again, shut up about EI. Make sure the workers have jobs,
Keep food on the table and pay their bills. We will make that happen. Workers are fighting back. Workers got their elbows up. They're ready to fight.
Stupidest slogan ever made. Elbows up. Absolutely moronic. Gordie Howe would be ashamed. I'm going to leave it at that. It's such a fucking stupid slogan.
Back against Donald Trump, they need a government that's got their back. A government that's going to fight for working people, not for the billionaires. On top of that, we need to create an economy where we are more resilient, where we are stronger. So we need to build Canadian jobs, building Canada up using Canadian content and Canadian workers.
Great. I've been saying that since I was 12 years old. Why haven't you been doing that for the last decade? You've been in power. You've had a say. You propped up the Liberal Trudeau Carney government for the last 4 years. You held the swaying vote to make sure all of this could have happened. Why have you not done it?
Let's use only Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian content in any infrastructure project across this country. Let's build jobs that create good paying jobs where we're using Canadian steel, Canadian content to build up our country. Let's build a more resilient Canada. And also what's become really clear is we need to make sure that we stop. Right now, the vulnerability that we have is that there's a lot of threat of foreign takeovers of Canadian industries. Let's prevent that from happening, strengthening Canadian industry and not letting foreign takeovers happen. And finally, we've obviously got to diversify our trade relations. So we're going to work on making sure we trade to more countries so we're not so dependent on the US.
Again, you have held the swaying vote for the last 4 years. Why have you not been diversifying? Why have you been blocking pipelines? Why have you been blocking manufacturing? Why have you been blocking natural resources? That's on you. That's on you and your NDP and the Liberals, Trudeau and Carney, and Elizabeth I Fall Down Nightly May. It's you guys that did that. It wasn't Poilievre. You did that. So why is it now important to diversify when it wasn't 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago? What's changed? I mean, I'm 59 years old, so I've been saying for the last 47 years to do exactly what you're saying to do now. Why is it important now, but it wasn't 4 years ago?
Well, let us be really clear. In this election, Canadians have a choice. You got Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre who are showing you who they are and who they're in it for. They're in it to defend billionaires. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. That's who they're in it for. We're in it for the workers. We're in it for everyday people. We're in it for you. So if you want someone that's going to fight for you and your family, that's us. That's New Democrats. If you want someone that's going to defend the profits of billionaires and CEOs, well, that's Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. We're going to constantly, and every single day of this campaign, let Canadians know who we're in it for. We're in it for you. We're going to fight for you. We're going to put you first.
Actions speak louder than words. Again, last 12 years you've been in politics. You have not stepped up for the workers, not once. You've done nothing for them. You've been saying you stand up for the workers, but you haven't done anything for them. When do your actions meet your words?
We need a worker-centric economy. You need a pro-worker prime minister. That's New Democrats. That's me. J'accepte cet appui. Je veux remercier Marty Warren, Kevin. Merci infiniment pour votre appui. On sait que dans ces temps difficiles, avec les contenus canadiens, on a besoin de diversifier notre relation commerciale et on a besoin de protéger nos industries parce qu'il y a une menace des autres entreprises étrangères qui veulent acheter nos industries au Canada.
We'll start with questions on site. It'll be one question, one follow-up.
So we're hearing the election calls coming on Sunday. What are your thoughts on the timing of this all?
Well, this is a decision of the Liberals. I've said very clearly that we are up against one of the most serious threats that we've seen in a generation when it comes to the economy.
Very true. We are. But it's a threat created by you, Justin Trudeau, and Mark Carney. That's who has endangered our economy. Trump is taking advantage of it, but it's you, Trudeau, and Carney that created the problem.
And I propose that we should put in place protections for workers first. We should guarantee that every worker in our country will have the ability to access a support that will keep a roof over their head, food on the table, and they can continue.
Do you notice he's yet to talk about creating jobs? Creating jobs is not his concern. He is only concerned about the workers getting on the government tit, being supported by the government, which, as we know throughout history, when you are dependent on the government for your income, you are more likely to support the government that gives you those benefits. But he's not actually talking about creating jobs. Maybe I missed it. Somebody in the comments, please put it in. Show me where. I have not heard him once talk about creating jobs. He's mentioned EI or gone about EI numerous times now, like it being on EI is the ultimate solution to all problems. No, jobs, employment. This is what's going to get these workers going, profiting, advancing. Collecting an EI check that's like 60% of what they make when they're working is not the ultimate solution. The economy is bad because you propped up Trudeau and Carney. They created the unemployment.
Continue to pay their bills. I want to see that done first. I want to see a plan that creates jobs in Canada using Canadian content. I want to see that economic plan put in first, and then we go to an election. But it's clear that Mark.
Okay, he just said creating jobs, but well, is that done by unicorn farts? Magical pixie dust? Like, what is your plan to create jobs? You've been in government or in politics for 12 years. Isn't it about time you actually came out and said what your plan to create jobs is? Because I've never heard it.
Mark Carney wants to go first in an election, and so that's what's going to happen. But we're ready for an election. And in this election, the choice is clear. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre have already shown you they're in it for the billionaires. They're in it for rich CEOs. They're in it for those at the top. We're in it for you. We're in it for workers. And that's why we're so honored to receive the endorsement of United Steelworkers with great honor.
Okay, they're honored to receive the United Steelworker endorsement. That's a union. The unions always support the NDP. There was no question that they were going to get that endorsement. So he's so honored that he got an endorsement that he's always gotten from a union. How do you get endorsed by the union? You do kickbacks to the union. That's all. The companies that actually do the employing, They're not endorsing them. Those companies are endorsing Polyev because, see, this is the problem with socialism. And I have some friends that are radical, extremist, alt-left socialists. And to all of them, they seem to think these jobs they'll be carried over. Even if the company goes bankrupt, the jobs will still exist. No, you need a healthy company. You need a healthy industry to create those jobs, to maintain those jobs. You can't punish the company and the industry and expect them to keep maintaining jobs. This is why 30 people have been laid off, because Carney, Trudeau, and Jugmeet went at the industry. They punished the industry. So the industry said, screw this, and they laid people off so that they start making money again. Industries and employment rely on each other. For employment to happen, the industry has to be healthy. For the industry to be healthy, you can't have draconian government oversight like Jugmeet, Carney, and Trudeau keep trying to push through. I want these workers to have jobs, but for them to have jobs, their industry has to be healthy. And if the industry continues to be unhealthy, well, then Donald Trump wins because the industry says, screw this, and moves to the States and opens up there. Well, suddenly we've just lost all the jobs, just like when Brookfield moved its asset management from Toronto to New York. All the jobs went with it. It's the same thing. But for some reason, these guys just can't seem to grasp this reality.
So this area has typically been an NDP stronghold. How do you plan on maintaining that and then growing more support in this area?
We want workers to know when you're up against a question in this trade war, where you've got Donald Trump threatening workers, threatening our very existence, our very country. Who's going to fight for you and your family?
Not you.
And not the billionaires, not the CEOs. That's really a question I want folks to ask themselves. And we're going to show that here on the mountain with Monique Taylor, that's someone that's going to fight for you and your family. That's not someone that's going to suck up to a CEO or try to please a billionaire. That's not what you get with Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. It's pretty clear they've shown you their priorities. Mark Carney, in his week as prime minister, did trips to Europe and cut taxes for millionaires. That was his priority. He did not put in place anything for workers. Pierre Poilievre literally showed up.
Okay, I'm not a Mark Carney fan, as you all know, but Carney paused the carbon tax. He didn't get rid of the carbon tax, he paused it. But that helps the workers. Isn't it amazing that Jugmeet doesn't understand that lowering taxes helps middle and low income people? Like that, lowering taxes, making things more affordable is exactly what we need. Now, Carney, he's doing the sleight of hand where he takes away the consumer carbon tax, but he's going to hammer us with a massively increased industrial carbon tax, which obviously is going to get put onto the consumer. So a tax is a tax is a tax. So Carney's just playing stupid little games. But Jugmeet, he really doesn't understand that taxing people into oblivion hurts the very workers that he claims to be representing. Lower taxes helps everybody, not just the rich.
To a factory not far from here in Burlington, where workers actually lost their jobs. And his proposal was a tax cut for big businesses. That was literally his proposal, standing in front of workers who lost their jobs.
Again, you tax cut, they have money, they hire the workers back. 1, 2, 3. Jugmeet just doesn't understand how economics work. It's very clear. He thinks these industries are going to maybe he thinks if the government props up the industries, the workers will keep getting. But we've seen firsthand that doesn't work. Subsidies do not work. Tax cuts do work. If you make the companies profitable on their own, they will hire the employees. If you just subsidize them like we've been doing with solar farms and wind farms, as soon as the subsidies end, those things shut down and they go elsewhere. We need strong companies and strong industries so that we have strong employment. He doesn't get that.
That shows you who he's in it for. Who we're in it for is you. One of the first things we're going to do as government is make sure that EI is there for you. If you ever lose your job, there's going to be something in place that's going to...
Again, he's not worried about the jobs. He's worried about the EI. Buddy, your priorities are completely mixed up.
Keep a roof over your head. That's going to keep food on the table. That's going to make sure you can pay your bills. That's the difference. We're worried about workers. They're worried about billionaires.
All right. How do you envision fighting back against Trump? Because it seems like every day he comes up with a new twist, a new whopper.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think We know what he's going to do next.
We know exactly what he's going to do next. Trump is not that hard to figure out, contrary to what Jugmeet and Carney keep trying to tell you. So here, I'm going to lay it out for you. Very simple. Trump came into office. He went after fentanyl, border, and NATO. Now, those three issues are very legitimate issues that Trudeau, Carney, Jugmeet have been ignoring, and they ignored intentionally. And we as Canada have suffered for that. But Trump doesn't care about it, honestly. Well, actually, that's not fair. I'm sure he does care about the fentanyl and that, and I'm sure he cares about those issues. They just gave him the excuse, the justification to create his trade war. So that's what he did. What Trump wants is for businesses to move to the States, to open up manufacturing jobs in the States, and then for Americans to buy American. He doesn't want Americans buying Canadian products. He doesn't want Americans buying Mexican products. He doesn't want Americans buying UK products. He wants Americans buying American products because when you buy America, it creates employment. It creates wealth in America. That is his long-term goal. And anyone with a fucking mind knows this. So he's being completely disingenuous where he's saying we don't know what Trump's going to do. We know exactly what Trump's going to do, and we know exactly why Trump's going to do it. What we need is a strong leader to stand up to Trump. That's not Carney. As we've already seen, the day Carney took office, 6 days after Trump took office, Carney moved Brookfield from Toronto to New York. All the jobs went to New York, exactly what Trump wanted. And Trump just came out the other day and said, I want a liberal government in Canada because it'll get me the deal I want. What he means by that is he has no doubt that he can manipulate Carney. Carney will be, just like he manipulated Trudeau and Freeland in the NAFTA free trade. He took them to the cleaners last time, and he's trying to do it again. He knows with Poilievre, it's not going to be a free ride. With Carney, he knows he'll bully Carney, and Carney will just sputter and spew and eventually give in. And he knows Jugmeet is never going to form office, so Jugmeet's not an issue.
I don't think anyone knows what he's going to do next. I don't think he knows what he's going to do next. He wants to create chaos, and he really wants to hurt people. I called him an arsonist because he's setting fire not just to our economy, he's setting fire to his own economy. He's hurting workers and people in the United States. So we got to fight back against that, and there's lots of ways to fight back. But what I'm particularly concerned about is who we're fighting for. We've seen really the type of fight that's in front of us.
Here we go
has
again.
to be one where we put workers first. But we've already seen where Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney want to go. They're already talking about big tax cuts for millionaires, tax cuts for big corporations. None of that's going to guarantee that working people actually get their fair share. That's the difference. So in the fight with Donald Trump, I want you to ask yourselves, who do you think is going to actually put your family first?
Not you.
Who's going to put working people first? It's not going to be Pierre Poilievre. It's certainly not going to be Mark Carney. It's going to be us.
We will
Look at
now
that
take
guy.
questions via.
Look at this guy. Look how unimpressed he is to be there. That says it all. And also right behind Jugmeet, this guy, he's not clapping at all to any of this, but he's hidden by, this guy, and Jugmeet. So you got to watch really closely, but he's not clapping. And then you got a guy over on, not this guy, but over to the left of this guy is another guy who's sort of like fidgeting around and everything. These people clearly don't want to be here. They are just been told to be here, probably by the union. They've been forced into it, and they're not happy about it, and it's hilarious.
via Zoom.
That's here. Yep.
So we will go ahead and start with David Baxter with CP. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. You can hear me all right?
Just try that one more time. I think we lost the audio, but it'll sure come back right now.
Oh, mic check 1 2 1 2. Hear me all right now?
I do, yeah.
Perfect. Right. Talking about Mark Carney and tax cuts. The one thing he's talked about wanting to get rid of the capital gains tax. We haven't seen how they do that yet. But one thing he has talked about that they have done is bring in the Ordering Council to get rid of the consumer carbon price. What would an NDP government do on that front?
Well, I mean, that decision's already been made. And we said for a long time that in the fight against the climate crisis, what we're worried about is the two approaches of the Liberals and Conservatives. The Liberals let big polluters off the hook. They didn't really go after them the right way, and it put a lot of burden on working people. We raised that as a concern. And then with Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives, they want to see no limit to how much big polluters can pollute.
Okay, that's a flat out lie by him. He knows it. Poilievre's come out time and time again saying we have the most ethical carbon capture and policies in the world, which we do. That's proven fact. I know the left doesn't like to hear that, but that is 100% true, proven fact. And Polyev wants to address it through technology. Technology is how we are going to lower our carbon footprint. Now, continuing to constantly talk about the carbon footprint is really disingenuous as well, because we have the lowest carbon footprint of the G7, of the industrial countries. Like, our carbon footprint is so tiny already that even if we went with Mark Carney's plan and we destroyed our economy, just burned it down to the ground, went to net zero, we wouldn't even make a difference on the worldwide stage. What the world needs to do is convince China to lower their carbon footprint. But we already saw Carney, as Brookfield, he sold China American coal. So he increased the carbon footprint, not lowered it. We saw with Carney, he cut down 22,000 acres of Brazilian rainforest. That did more damage to the environment and to carbon levels than Canada can in 10 years of out of control, never doing a single thing. Just that one move by Carney and Brookfield did more damage to our world environment than Canada could in 10 years. Carney built pipelines throughout the Middle East while blocking pipelines in Canada. So, the NDP and the Liberals and the Greens constantly talking about carbon footprint and carbon levels and blah, blah, blah. It's politicking, and it's disingenuous, and it's lying. We don't need this stuff. Polyev has the right way. We've lowered it enough that we can push ourselves over the edge with technology. We don't need to do the grand things. And there is absolutely no evidence at all that a carbon tax lowers carbon footprint. Ever since Trudeau got in power, propped up by Jugmeet here, and all those carbon taxes that they all voted for time and time and time again, our carbon levels rose. Not once did they drop. Our carbon levels dropped when Premier Smith put in mechanisms. When Jason Kenney, I don't like him, but Jason Kenney put in mechanisms. When Scott Moe in Saskatchewan put in mechanisms. Like, these are when the carbon footprints drop. It wasn't the carbon tax. The carbon tax has had and you don't even have to look at Canada. Look worldwide. Carbon tax has never lowered carbon emissions in any country. None. So constantly bringing up the carbon tax is so pathetic, really.
That's clearly a bad plan as well. We don't want big polluters to poison our air, our water, our land. So we
in Canada, the big polluters aren't. Simple as that.
need a plan that goes after big polluters, that supports workers, and that actually reduces our emissions.
All right, how are you going to go after Chinese polluters? Because that's where the carbon is. How are you going to go after? Well, actually, I would love to see him go after India, because the minute he stepped foot there, that would actually be worth watching.
That's what we're going to put forward in the campaign. And I look forward to sharing the details of our plan. But you're going to see those elements. We're going to support working people. We're going to make the big polluters pay, and we're going to reduce our emissions.
And of course, we've seen a more and more polarized electorate, threats to candidates, constituency offices, things like that over the last couple of years, including protesters getting in your own face not that long ago. What is the NDP doing for candidate security and volunteer security in and around the election?
Okay, another disingenuous question from mainstream media. What he's talking about is there was a encounter, I think it was a year ago, it might have been 2 years ago, in that range. Jugmeet was coming out of his office or whatever, and there was one guy there who asked him a few questions, and Jugmeet brushed him off. So somebody else heckled him, and Jugmeet stopped, and he turned around and he walked up to the guy, and he got right in the guy's face and started screaming at him. And the guy's like, "Back off. I didn't say it. It was the guy over there that said it." And Jugmeet, he just put on his biggest tough man act, and he blah, 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 while he's being covered by his government paid security guards and everything. And the guy tried to walk away, but Jugmeet wouldn't let it happen and kept blah, blah, blah. That's all it was. He wasn't facing protesters. The protesters we see in the news are actually what Jugmeet supports. They're Hamas. He hasn't been the victim of protesters.
It's a good question. I know one of the things I'm really worried about with some of the increasing tension in politics is there's some really amazing candidates who may not put their name forward. And that to me is a big worry. I want people to want to put their name forward because we're better off when more people come forward and put their names forward as candidates. We want more people to participate. We don't want people to feel discouraged. So this is a part of the reason why we got to focus in our critiques on the policies. You're going to hear me point out the problems with the policies of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre.
Okay, again, somebody in the comments, please fill me in. I have not heard him critique a single policy. I've heard him insult. I've heard him bring up billionaires without any factual backing. And I've definitely not heard a single policy from Jugmeet. So what's he talking about here?
The fact that they're putting billionaires first and not putting workers first. The fact that they're neglecting actually workers and what they're going through. The workers behind me, they need someone that's going to say, hey, every single day when I wake up, what am I going to do to make working people's lives better? That's what a leader should do. That's what a politician should do. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So when I critique a leader, I'm going to focus on their policies or their bad decisions. And I think it's important for us to...
Would that bad decision be propping up the Trudeau-Carney government for the last 4 years? Is that the bad decision you're talking about?
Make it about the decisions, about what they're doing, and not make it personal. And so, I encourage folks to keep that as the way we move forward in this campaign. Let's make it about the decisions. Let's make it about people's policies, and let's not make it personal. I said recently, taking shots at someone's kid, it's offline. Whoever that is, whatever party they are, you don't go after a politician's kids. And so we got to make sure we're drawing these lines.
I find the outrage of people going after Carney's kid kind of funny, because I don't approve of going after kids, obviously. But Carney's kid actually falls into a demographic that is a political topic, whether he likes it or not. And Carney put his kid front and center. It wasn't Poilievre, it wasn't Jugmeet, it wasn't Elizabeth May, it wasn't Donald Trump, it wasn't anyone. It was Mark Carney put his kid front and center. But that's still no excuse. But I'm reminded of a story that I read. It was on Facebook. This was when Prime Minister Harper was still in office. He was running. It was the year or the election where Trudeau beat him. And I saw a post on Facebook where a Liberal supporter posted that they wanted somebody to take Harper, his wife, and his kids out into the street and behead him. That's what he posted. I'm not easily offended. I was offended by that. So I reported it to Facebook. Now, this is when Facebook was in its full radical extremist alt-left lunacy mode. And the moderators of Facebook came back to me and said, we see no problem with what he posted. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But that was and is the modern day left wing. So looking at that post, I didn't see any left wingers coming out saying, oh no, you can't say that. Actually, I saw a ton of left wingers supporting what this idiot had said. So suddenly the left is worried about going after kids? Yeah, I don't buy it. You guys pick your spots. And when it happens to somebody else, you're fine with it. But when it happens to you or those around you, suddenly it's outrageous. How about we be consistent all the time? Like, I don't accept Jugmeet saying this, because he could have came out and spoken about this before. He could have said this is not acceptable when it was happening to Harper or it was happening to so many other conservatives, but he didn't. He's only talking about it now because it's happening to the left.
Make it about the policies, make it about each candidate. That's fine. But let's not make it personal. Let's not attack people's families.
Okay, I'm going to skip this, but this guy, he just cracks me up. He's looking at his watch. He's looking away. He's fidgeting. It can't be any more obvious how much he does not want to be there. Clearly, he's being forced to be there by the union.
Next, we'll go to Marina with the CBC. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. The NDP hasn't polled this low in decades. Some projections show that the NDP is at risk of losing up to 3/4 of the seats you have right now. Your own seat is at risk. After all this time as the leader.
Just so people know, Jugmeet's political career is over. Like, regardless what happens, he's done. He is polling distant third in Burnaby, and they split his riding this past time. So there is some talk that he may switch to the other Burnaby riding, but he would still be polling distant third. His political career is over. It's amazing to me that the NDP haven't replaced him yet, with how low they've gone in the polls and the fact that he's going to lose his seat. It's a foregone conclusion now.
What do you think it is that you haven't been able to do to turn things around for the party?
This is a very important election. And I know that Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre would want nothing better than the NDP to disappear so they can continue to give big gifts to the billionaires, to favor rich CEOs, and not have us point out that actually we need an economy that works for working people. I'm sure they would love for us to not point out that they've completely...
Again, I'm just going to keep saying it. If you're worried about the economy for working people, why have you been propping up Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney for 4 years? Actions speak louder than words, and your actions tell us you don't give a shit about the economy. You never have, you never will.
Totally ignored working people. I think Mark Carney would love for me to not be there to point out that a week of him being in prime minister, he's found time to do a whole bunch of other things, but nothing for workers at a time when they're actually worried about losing their jobs and they're already losing their jobs. Nothing.
Again, they're losing their jobs because you propped up Carney and Trudeau. That's why they're the workers have not magically started losing their jobs in the last week. I'm no Mark Carney fan, but he being appointed the Liberal leader does not cause mass job loss over a 1 week period. The job loss is over the last 4 years, and you are directly responsible for those job losses. You, Trudeau, Carney, Freeland, Elizabeth, I fall down nightly May. That's who's responsible.
Nothing to improve EI. Nothing to say, hey, if you lose your job in this country, we're going to guarantee that you can keep...
Once again, he's not concerned about jobs, he's concerned about EI. If they have jobs, they don't fucking need EI.
Your roof over your head, you're going to keep food on the table. Nothing. And Pierre Poilievre would like nothing more than you Democrats not to be there to point out, you show up to a factory where workers lost their jobs, and you're not going to mention anything for those workers that lost their job. You're going to propose another big tax cut for big corporations. I mean, I'm sure they would like nothing better than that. News for them, news for everybody. We're not going anywhere. We're always going to fight for working people. We're not going anywhere.
See, as I said, that guy in the back, he's not clapping. He's just shifting back and forth. This guy actually clapped, but if you've been watching the rest of the video, he doesn't want to be there.
If you don't improve the NDP's standing in this next election, should you step down as leader?
Yes.
Right now, we're focused on the election in front of us and the important choice that people have. You want to choose Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, who've already shown you they're in it for the billionaires.
Here we
or
go
you
again.
want to choose New Democrats who are going to continue to fight for you and your family. That's a choice in this election.
We will now go to global news. If you can identify yourself, please.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. This is Jillian Piper with News. You can hear me okay?
Yep. A little bit of feedback noise there, but I think I can get you.
Oh, apologies. Okay. So I just wanted to ask, we've seen a trend in recent polling that progressive voters are moving to the Liberal Party. What is your message to Canadians who think they're voting strategically with the Liberal government to avoid a Poilievre government?
Well, for voters out there, I want you to ask this question of yourself, that in this time, when we've got serious threats from Donald Trump, we got threats to workers, we got threats to our country, who do you think is going to fight for you and your family? Literally, who's going to fight for working people?
Not you.
Because I can tell you, Mark Carney has already shown you who his priority is. He's already proposed tax cuts for millionaires instead of actually anything for working people. Pierre Poilievre is the same thing. He's shown you who he is. He showed up to a factory where workers lost their jobs and didn't offer anything to those workers. We're different. Our priority is you. So in this time, I ask you to ask yourself.
If your priority is you, why has your priority not been the workers for the last 12 years? It's a really simple question that he will never answer. Some people are going to justify it saying, well, he wasn't in power. He has been the sway vote for the last 4 years. He has held the ultimate power. Trudeau and Carney could not get any of their disastrous policies through without him green stamping them. So he has held that power, and he still did not take advantage of it and put it for the workers.
Who do you want in Ottawa fighting for you? Who do you want in Ottawa who's going to put you and your family first? Who do you think is actually going to prioritize working people over the CEOs? Who's going to prioritize working families over billionaires? That answer is very simple. That's New Democrat.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. And just as a follow-up here, I wanted to ask that Mr. Polyev has decided that reporters will not be traveling with him on his federal election campaign. What do you make of that decision?
Okay, that's a disingenuous question, so let's clear it up right here and now. Yes, Polyev has said you will not be allowed on the plane, but reporters are still allowed. All reporters, not just select reporters, but all reporters are allowed into the conferences, the rallies, the scrums, the press conferences. They're all allowed. He can't say the same thing. Him and the Liberals block multiple media outlets daily. They don't allow them because they don't like them. Those outlets don't carry water for them, don't push the left agenda, so they're tossed out. Now, you don't have to like, say, somebody like the Rebel. I don't follow the Rebel. I don't read the Rebel, but they are still, whether you like it or not, a legitimate news source. They have offices in Canada, the UK, Australia, America. Like, they are a legitimate news source. He won't allow them. He won't even speak to them. When they try to speak to him, he gets really aggressive and in their face abusive. Carney, he just says, oh, book an appointment with my handlers and I'll talk to you. But they always get turned down, so he doesn't talk to them either. The Liberals and the NDP are the only two parties, and the Greens, I guess, but who cares about the Greens, are the only two parties that actually censor out media outlets. All Poilievre's done is said, you don't get to ride on my plane or my bus, which in my mind makes perfect sense. That's when he's strategizing. It's when he's talking to his people and he's strategizing. That's when you don't want the media around. But when you're at these functions or a rally, a scrum, a press conference, whatever, all media is invited to Poilievre's. He doesn't pick and choose select media outlets. He's not Trump. Carney and Jugmeet behave like Trump, picking and choosing what outlets are allowed.
Well, it's no surprise to me that Pierre Poilievre is afraid of some questions. You can see the way he acts when he gets asked a question. He gets defensive.
And more bullshit. Poilievre, out of all the leaders, Poilievre's actually the best speaker. He's concise, he's clear, he's direct, and he knows his stuff. You listen to Carney, it's it's like a bad rap song. Now, Jugmeet, surprisingly enough, is a pretty good speaker, but he lies. Jugmeet is like Carney in that regard. He lies. He hasn't met a truth that he couldn't lie about.
He gets offended. He can't handle questions. Is that something you want as a prime minister who's afraid of questions? Who can't take the heat? I mean, you need someone who's going to be able to take tough questions, who's not afraid of any questions.
Okay, I got questions for you, Jugmeet. Why are you banned from India? Hey, there's questions that you've refused your entire political career to answer. So how about you answer those?
Welcome the journalists. They're going to be on our bus. They're going to be on our plane. We're not afraid of tough questions. We believe that this job is one that requires you to be able to stand up and say, yeah, this is what I believe in, and be able to have your convictions challenged. I'm not afraid of that. Pierre Poilievre has shown you again and again, he's afraid of those types of questions.
This guy cracks me up.
I'm sorry to say, I think Mark Carney's showing you that as well. He's showing you that he doesn't like tough questions either. I mean, the fact that he's unwilling to answer questions, very legitimate questions about his conflict of interest. He's going to be the person that is running as one of the candidates for prime minister.
Well, it took 34 minutes and 33 seconds, but Jugmeet finally hit on a real factual issue. Mark Carney is terrified of his conflict of interest. He's now admitted he has a conflict of interest, which was really surprising, but he's terrified and he refuses to answer questions on it. And that's actually the main reason why we're getting the election now, is he's going to call the election this Sunday so that by the time we go to the polls, the ethics commissioner, which was handpicked by Justin Trudeau, no less, hasn't had time to officially come out and expose the conflict of interests. It takes roughly 2 months for that. He just submitted his paperwork. So we'll be going to the polls before the official conflict of interest report comes out. Now, we know what the conflicts are, or we know some of them anyway. There's Brookfield, there's dodging paying taxes, there's selling American coal to China, there's building pipelines in the Middle East while blocking pipelines in Canada. There is his ties to the Chinese government. The UK has a couple of criminal investigations going on about him in Brookfield. Peru has an criminal investigation going on about money that was supposed to make it to the people, never made it. It got soaked up by Brookfield. So there's a lot of conflict of interest going on with Mark Carney. and he is desperate to get to the polls before they're exposed. So Jugmeet's actually telling the truth, finally, on one topic. It took him 34 and a half minutes, but he finally got there.
Every other candidate for prime minister has to disclose very clearly their assets. It is an understandable thing for Canadians to be able to make a decision about who they want to govern the country, to know, do they have any conflict of interest? What are they? The fact that he's unwilling to do that shows you, again, a fear of accountability. And I want Canadians to pay attention to that. We're not afraid of accountability. Bring on the questions. We invite journalists onto our plane, onto our bus, and we'll look forward to meeting you on the campaign trail.
All right, there you have it. That was Jagmeet Singh's press conference. He really didn't say anything at all. 37-minute press conference. He said nothing. Poof. But did anyone really expect anything different? So anyway, that's all I have for you today. Jagmeet Singh lying, blaming Polyev and Carney, not taking responsibility for his propping up the Trudeau-Carney government for the last 4 years. And I guess we're never going to get any responsibility from Jagmeet. You know, he's right about one thing. I couldn't care less if the NDP disappear and went away forever. And it seems like under him, that's the route they're going. The only bad thing about that is the NDP voters seem to be going to the Liberals, so it's making the race tighter than it really should be. But I still think Polyev will win, so it's all good. Anyway, I wanted to do something different, so that's it. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe, please. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. Always feel free to leave a comment. Don't worry, I don't swing my cane very hard anymore if I dislike your comment. And as always, pew 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Bye.